Hi, everybody. It's 11 o'clock Eastern Time on my YouTube channel. Good morning. It's Joe Chaffee here as we are going to update you on the latest developments with regards to Hurricane Michael. There are some new things to consider, and we are very close to this being a Category 3 hurricane. And we'll get into all of that. We've got the latest reconnaissance aircraft that's in there right now, so we'll be able to see what's going on. And hopefully, I won't have signal issues here. So keep your fingers crossed. Let me just right off the top. I just want to do this at the beginning and make these announcements. And we'll start off with tonight. If those of you who are on Long Island, at 6 o'clock, at 7 o'clock tonight, I will be at the Bayport Blue Point Library. That is in Blue Point, New York, which is in central Long Island on the South Shore, not too far from Patchogue, about halfway out. If you are in the neighborhood, do please drop by. This is perfect timing because I will be talking about Hurricane Michael. It was going to be about tropical storms and hurricanes anyway, so we've got one front and center. And I will live stream the library presentation tonight. They usually go about an hour and a half, and as long as I don't have any signal issues, I will be live streaming the library talk. So if you can't make it, you can watch it here. So it'll be a combination of doing what I usually do weather-wise, Q&A, and everything else, and we'll get you folks involved on the chat board too if you've got any questions. Now, with respect to those of you who are interested in expanding your weather experience, I just want to very quickly let you know that I do have a platform on Patreon. It's a subscription platform. It's just $2 a month to start, unless you want to go higher, and that's totally up to you. Not only do you get my website posts, and you get them with no ads, but you will also get exclusive posts just for Patreon members, and those of you who are on Patreon know that has been the case, and exclusive videos just for Patreon members. And soon, if we get enough people, I will also have guests exclusively for Patreon. So I'll put the link up. The link is up on the descriptor to this live stream. I'll throw it up in the chat board. And I've gotten good reviews so far. It's also available in app form, Patreon is. So if you subscribe, you can have it on your phone. And speaking of apps, just waiting for the last things to be done with mine. And that will be out hopefully by the end of the month. With all things technical, you think you can get them done fast, and in reality, you can't. Now, let's go right to what's happening with Michael this morning, and we have the latest satellite loop. Let me just move a few things around here on the screen so you can see it clearly. And Michael is there to my left, right? No, that way, to my left. And it continues to organize. It's been in some ways, it's been very methodical. And one of the things that the Hurricane Center addressed last night was the fact that in spite of the upper air conditions, which really were not ideal at all, there was wind shear in this of 20 knots or higher, and it was persistent, yet Michael strengthened through all of that, and not just for a brief burst or two, but it carried it all the way. And one of the points that was made is the fact that the system is rather large. It has a rather large eye, and perhaps that is helping to mitigate whatever issues there were with the 20 knots or higher of wind shear. Now, what's happened today is that the wind shear has relaxed, and it's forecast by weather models to remain at under 10 knots pretty much the rest of the way as it moves toward the Florida coast. So there really, there really isn't anything to stop this from becoming a Category 3 hurricane, and it is almost there at this point. So I want to take you to the recon here. Just give me a moment to set it up. Uh, the recon map is as with the weather model maps that we show you, are courtesy of Tropical Tidbits. I also think this is a good time to remind everybody and any newcomers, welcome to my YouTube channel, and do please subscribe, which is for free. But if you are seeing any maps here that are, except for the maps from the National Hurricane Center, do not use weather model maps or anything else with regards to making decisions when it comes to tropical storms and hurricanes. You need to go to your local officials. You need to go to weather.gov, or you need to go to nhc.noaa.gov, which is the National Hurricane Center's website. All right, so let's go front and center here on the recon, and I'll do a little zoom and make it a bit bigger so you guys can see it better. Now, the whitish wind barbs that you see are all winds in excess of winds between 96 and 113 knots. And that is showing up both in the southeastern quadrant and in the northeastern quadrant. But you also have a very large belt of hurricane force winds. Each one of these, the latitude, longitude, it's half a degree. So we're talking 30 nautical miles. You've got hurricane force winds that in some cases go out almost more than 60 miles from the center. So this wind field here is quite large, and the gales, which start with the darker green, I mean, they actually go out well in excess of 150, 175 miles, particularly on the east side, where you've got this long string. Look where the center is. So you're talking about 30, 60, 90, 100 miles out to the east. You've got this long band of winds running between 50 and 60 and 60, between 50 and 64 knots to hurricane force. Even some darker purples there showing up, some hurricane force winds way out to the northeast of the center. So this is the reasoning that the Hurricane Center gave last night for the idea that perhaps the wind shear is not the biggest issue because of the fact that the storm is rather large and the wind field is rather large. That it is mitigating the effects of wind shear from last night. And as I said, going forward today, we don't seem to have that issue. Now, we're going to go to the National Hurricane Center's website. So for those of you who have never seen this or go there infrequently, oh, and by the way, we do have a new tropical storm. Tropical storm Nadine has formed out in the tropical Atlantic. Top winds are 40 miles an hour. I haven't even had a chance to look at that. I did see that a tropical depression had formed there. Now we have tropical storm Nadine, and of course Leslie is still out there, and it's going to be out there it's going to actually get almost to about 25 west, and then it's going to, if the models are right, it's going to swing around and turn back westward and get back west of 50 degrees or even 55 degrees west over the next 7 or 8 days. This thing will not go away. But we're front and center today on Michael. So if you go to nhc.noaa.gov, which we have, you can see it on the screen, and you scroll down, each storm has its own section here. So we've got Michael, which is right in the middle between Leslie and Nadine. If you go to the Storm Surge Inundation tool, this is a very useful tool for those of you at home in the Florida Panhandle. If you want to get an idea of just exactly what kind of storm surge are we looking at, this is the tool to have and to take a look at. And I'm going to bring you into the Florida coast. We've got the counties named here. I'm not really all that familiar with some of these Florida counties, but where you see the red, I just want to make sure you got enough of the screen there so you can take a look. But where you see the areas in red, this is a forecast from the storm surge of water greater than 9 feet above the ground. And you'll notice that it does actually penetrate pretty far inland, and we'll run it up along the coast, and it continues as you get toward the Big Bend of Florida, large area here of significant storm surge. And this is based on the Category 3 hurricane strength. If things change, if the advisories change, if the Hurricane Center sees that the storm is stronger or weaker, then you'll see this map change. And you can check it with every advisory. If the track changes, it's going to change the inundation, where the strongest wind storm surge is going to be. So it's constantly updating, and this would be very useful for those of you who live near these in or near these coastal communities. You can see the maximum surge is basically to the east of Panama City and then down around the Florida Big Bend, and there's less surge as you go west of there. So the landfall is going to occur somewhere east of Panama City, perhaps near Apalachicola, and you can see where Tallahassee is with all of this. So again, a very, very useful tool indeed. Now, the other issue that is emerging is rain, and the rain in particular for South Carolina and North Carolina because of what happened with um, Hurricane Florence. Again, I want to emphasize that this is a completely different situation than we had with Hurricane Florence, with that this storm is coming up from your southwest. When I'm referencing Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina, and the map here also from the Hurricane Center site, and I don't have too much argument with these forecasts, by the way. The rainfall amounts will be on the order of 2 to 4 inches, with a band of 4 to 6 inches running inland through central South Carolina and central North Carolina. So what it boils down to is the heaviest rains will wind up shifting when the storm is approaching Florida, approaching the Panhandle. You're going to see a tight band of very heavy rains in and around the circulation center. But as it moves inland and weakens back to a tropical storm, and also begins to undergo the impact of the upper air, the shortwave trough that's going to give it a little juice of energy here, it's going to start looking less like a tropical storm and more like an extra tropical storm, or a late fall or winter type low that runs up the eastern seaboard, albeit a strong one. And when that happens, the heavy rains will shift to the north and west of the low. So we're probably going to see the the Michael is a tropical storm, track northeastward inland, but not too far inland through Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, then gradually emerging off the Virginia coast. And you'll notice that the rain really cuts off on their forecast fairly sharply. And again, I have no real argument with this, cutting off very sharply north of the Delmarva Peninsula. And while a 1 to 2 inch rainfall is indicated as far north as the Hudson Valley, southern New England, and in eastern Pennsylvania, bear in mind that we do have a cold front that is sweeping eastward at the same time, and the rain is going to be more from the front than anything else. It would take a track much further north than from what's being forecasted now, and what I'm seeing from the weather models, in order to bring that heavier rain, say, into New Jersey, eastern Pennsylvania, and through New York City and southern New England and the Hudson Valley. I think that you're not going to see that really heavy tropical rain from Michael. Whatever we get, we will get from the cold front, and we will get from thunderstorms that will be with that. The actual forecast we can bring up also. Again, all of this you can find on weather.gov. But here's the wide map. I don't particularly like it when they go to these wide maps, but I'm going to go a bit tighter. But you can see how the track here runs inland into South Carolina, and then gradually by Friday morning, it's off east of northeast of the Virginia Capes and moving out to the northeast. And by 7 a.m. Saturday, it's south of Newfoundland, and then continuing to move from there, probably as a post-tropical or extra tropical cyclone. And it might have some punch to it as well as it moves away. And I know Ben McGinnis, you're on, so I will make sure, if I forget, remind me to check out the impacts for you. Let's go to. I want to go to the interactive map of this, and this way we can get um, tighter on the track. So here's the wide view, and we'll get closer because I want to go just show you that we do have tropical storm watches that are now posted for coastal Georgia, from the Georgia-Florida border northeastward to um, coastal South Carolina to about Myrtle Beach. And you can see the track inland coming in as a major hurricane. The hurricane warnings from the Alabama-Florida border across the Panhandle down around the Big Bend of the Suwannee River. That continues. There's been no change in the hurricane warning, and you can see the track of the hurricane and how the Hurricane Center has it making landfall tomorrow afternoon. And one of the things I've noticed, by the way, is that models are catching up to the fact that this is probably going to happen faster rather than slower. And there is the position at 7 a.m. on Friday morning. So it's going to track inland in Georgia, interior South Carolina, forecast to pass just east of Columbia, between Raleigh, Durham, and the coast in North Carolina, and then out. And bear in mind that from its position when it's in northeastern Georgia, 7 a.m. on Thursday, it moves quite a distance by 7 a.m. Friday. That is the one positive here. From the standpoint of the Carolinas, the last thing that you want to see is a system that is going to slow down and stall and do what Florence did. It's a totally different upper air setup. The storm is making a completely different approach. But let's make no mistake here. We're talking about some areas getting up to half a foot of rain. That is a lot of water for the ground to absorb under normal circumstances. You're going to have to do it with the fact that you still have you still have rivers and streams very high from the rainfalls that you got from Florence. So that your threshold for flash flooding is not going to be all that high. And it may come quickly, and it may come with much less in the way of additional rain. So please bear that in mind. Don't look at the absolute number, but evaluate the conditions in your area. Good idea to check weather.gov and go to your local National Weather Service site and see what they're going to be doing with respect to watches and warnings going forward. We can actually, I haven't really had a chance to look at that. So I just let's bring up the weather.gov. And at the moment, we do have, I'm going to go into down into South Carolina. I want to just see, they do have the tropical storm watches up. And yeah, it does seem like it's a little busy getting in there. So yes, so we have tropical storm watches up. They have flood watches up already for parts of Georgia. So you can look for those flood watches to gradually get extended further north and to the east. Why don't we take a look at what the NAM model has done? Because we do have the new NAM model, and I thought it was pretty significant on today's run because it has continued the trend of speeding it up. And for those of you that are north of say southern Delaware, you can rest assured, I think, at this point that the impacts here from Michael will be little to none, and it's really going to be the front that's going to drive the rain. So I'll just back it up. Landfall now, and the NAM was lagging like the European has been in terms of the timing of landfall. The European was hanging it back for almost an extra 24 hours, but this particular NAM model run has kind of caught up with the others. So landfall is roughly at 1 or 2 o'clock on Wednesday. So we've got another 26 hours for this system to strengthen, and then it moves in with its core, and then you start to see that heavy rain area. Look at see how it bulges on the northwest side. This is part of that process of transition. It maintains tropical characteristics to some degree, but gradually starts to look more like an extra tropical storm. You can also see the rains coming into the northeast and into the northern parts of the mid-Atlantic from the cold front. The front is passing through first, which is telling us that the upper trough is pushing it through first, and it's basically the front. Instead of it's going to act as an alleyway for Michael to move along. But as the northern part of the jet strengthens, it becomes more like a broom and pushes it out to the east. So you can see by Thursday afternoon, as it is now moving out of South Carolina and into North Carolina in terms of the low center. And you notice how fast the rain goes by. So we're talking here about the first rains arriving into Georgia during Wednesday afternoon in Southwest Georgia, but they move into South Carolina during the early morning hours on Thursday, and then by Thursday evening, it's done. So we're talking about a 12-hour rain event here, an 8 to 12-hour rain event, and then from there we move through North Carolina. It actually starts to move more east northeast at this point, and that's that northern jet pushing southward, creating more of a west southwest flow. Off. This is at 11 o'clock Thursday night in northeastern North Carolina. So unless if you're in southeastern Virginia, you can see that at least from the world that the NAM paints, the northern extent of the rains from Michael really only get into about southern Delmarva, and then by 2 a.m. into southern Delaware. But that's about it, because from here it moves out to the northeast and done, and remains a rather intense little cyclone, a 980 low, moving south of Nova Scotia. If it keeps that precip area tight, you will probably see less impact to Nova Scotia. We'll check on Newfoundland. I'm going to go to the Canadian map in just a second. I want to bring up the upper air so you can see what's happening here. Now just watch what we go from and what we go to, because we, of course, are where we are today with this big monstrous ridge along the East Coast and the trough out in the plains. Now, if this were a static situation where the upper air wasn't changing very much, in other words, if the big upper high was going to remain strong, the trough in the west was going to have was not going to be able to cut into it, you would see at this point, you would wind up seeing Michael moving more north-northwest than northward. And at least initially, it was getting on a course that's west of north, but that upper high weakens and the trough begins to make headway shifting eastward. And you see what happens over time as the upper high continues to weaken, and now the upper air westerly winds begin to drop down across the middle Mississippi Valley and on up into the Ohio Valley in the northeast. So this is why it can't move up the East Coast. I have said many times, and I've, it's a rule that I use, even though sometimes you get tempted to stray from it. But when you have, I'll even put it up on the paint boxes. I think this will illustrate it a bit better. Oh, and before we get to that, let me thank Cynthia Yaudis, who's on my Patreon page, and she sent me this graphic here showing the storms that have impacted the Florida Panhandle, and particularly the part of the Florida Panhandle that we're going to see landfall here has not seen a Category 2 hurricane since Hurricane Kate in 1985, and then you have to go back to Alma in 1966. So we're talking 33 years, and then you have to go back longer than that to 66. So 52 years since we've seen Category 2 hurricanes. Category 2. There doesn't appear to have ever been a Category 3 hurricane to hit in this general area. You can see where the threes have been concentrated more in the western part of the Panhandle from Pensacola westward. You've got Eloise, Dennis, Opal, all threes, and I can't see what the other one was from 2004. It looks like Ivan in 2004. But as far as the area that's getting hit, that's going to take the landfall here, there has never been a 3 coming inland. This is using the Saffir-Simpson scale. I should put the chart up so you can see what I'm looking at. Hang on. There you go. I did got so excited about seeing the chart that I forgot to bring it up. But again, take a look at this. The part of the Florida coast that we're talking about is right where you see Alma, Ermine, Earl, right in here. They've seen ones and twos, but and only a couple of them. They've never seen threes. And actually, if you look at the Florida Big Bend, there's like this huge gap that's never really taken a hit from a hurricane. Uh, at all. I've often said, Tampa Bay has been said many times, kind of sits in this sort of sweet spot where most of the storms wind up uh, going either north or south. So this is going to be a first for that particular area, and this is another, you know, this is going to be a new experience all the way around. So if this is going to strengthen to a three. Uh, your local officials are giving you advice. The National Hurricane Center is giving you advice. Um, do take a look at it, okay? And and we'll see whether this gets any stronger because if it was me, I don't know that I would hang around. And the fact is, if it winds up being less, and I've said this often enough, you didn't get the tragedy you were hoping for. I don't think you really you should be angry about that. So I've put that upper air so we can come back to that. So what I was referring to earlier was a rule of forecasting that I've used over the years with respect to hurricanes along the East Coast. And that is, if for the northern parts of the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, you want to have a trough like this, okay? Kind of a V-shaped trough where you have a southerly flow up the East Coast, okay? You don't have that this time around. Oh, you have the beginnings of it, but once that ridge is gone and the upper air winds, I didn't realize I could do this, but the upper air winds uh, wind up dropping and becoming more west-southwest. There's the representation here of Michael. It's got no place to go but to move out more toward the east-northeast as these upper air winds drop. Had this trough dug down and then created something like this, then you're talking about serious trouble for the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, because then it would just ride up in the southerly flow along the East Coast. You don't have that. And that's why it's only going to be able to get so far north before you wind up seeing it turn around and start to have more of an easterly component of motion rather than a northerly component of motion. I think we'll give I'm going to give the recon another check, see if we've got anything new from that, because the plane is still in there. And it doesn't, it's got two passes here. I'm trying to see where the actual plane icon is. I'm not seeing it, so I don't know if they're busy doing stuff there on the inside. We could also check, by the way, we'll go to, I'm going to go back to the Hurricane Center's website. And I want to take a look at, if you go to data and tools and you can go to aircraft reconnaissance, we'll bring up the vortex, what's called the vortex data message. Okay, this is actually a new one from just about 21 minutes before they went out with the advisory. So they may have used this in their advisory, but I will, just to really quick uh, tell you what this all means. I'll make it a bit bigger, so hang on. I may not be able to make it big enough, but if you go there, as I said, to nhc.noaa.gov, click on data and tools and click reconnaissance aircraft. This is this is how they used to send it on the teletype, and they've sort of maintained it, that tradition. But it gives you the latitude and longitude of where the plane is, 24.9, 86.2, 968 millibar pressure, 85 knots, and then when you look down, that's the max, the winds, and there's you can look up to see what all the letters mean, but When you look at the bottom, you can read some of the remarks, and he says maximum flight level wind of 105 knots, 22 nautical miles from the center. And they're measuring all sorts of things, including they tell you here, for example, 15 degrees C on P, 2,468 meters up. So the temperature roughly at 7,500 feet up is 15 degrees Celsius, and not too far from that, they measured 20 degrees Celsius. So, very much uh, a lot of good information that comes out of this. I have to review. Uh, we used to use these tools when I was younger, when I first started out, and I used to know what every letter meant. But over the years, we've gotten to where a lot of this stuff has been so automated that you just basically forget. We don't have enough of the GFS yet to look at. I can just we'll just bring it up really fast to see how much of the new GFS is in. So I'm thinking it just started, and no, we just are beginning here now with the new 12Z run. We were only even out to 6 hours, so we really don't have enough of it. What we'll do is we can come back. I'll come back and chat with you guys for a while, and we can, then we'll come back to this and see how much more of the new GFS that we have. So we're basically going to live stream the very beginning of the model run. So let me bring this backwards. Whoops. Move down. Come on. There we go. So you've got the loop. I'll freshen the loop up as well. So it'll disappear and reappear. Trying to see if you can start to see an eye beginning to really take shape and becoming better defined. This is going to make a 3. I mean, it's just about there as it is. So coming back on the board with everyone. Thanks for hanging in. And we'll go back to the GFS in just a second. The eye is still open to the southwest, David Schwartz. Will that inhibit rapid development? If it stays open, yeah. They did say overnight that it looked like some dry air got in there, which kind of inhibited it from strengthening further during the overnight, but it seems to be overcoming that at the moment. If that part of the eye closes off, then we'll get to a 3 in short order. Almost Cat 3 says Terry Dickinson. Why isn't this got live coverage again? Just in almost 3 packing 110 near the center. I'm just wondering, Terry. By the way, welcome and thanks for joining on the chat board. Live coverage with respect to what? I'm doing live coverage now, so I don't think you're referring to me. So if you could explain. Rose Miss, thank you for the thumbs up. I really appreciate it greatly. Thank you. And I just don't really care about the trolls. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. If you're part of the HARP weather control, crowd, the geoengineering, the flat Earth people, and all the rest of it, please do me and certainly do my loyal viewers a favor. Take it elsewhere, okay? If you put a thumbs down, I'm not, by the way, I'm not adverse to criticism, okay? I'm not perfect. If you got an issue, put it up front and center and we'll address it. But, if you don't like it, there's a whole bunch of other places you can go. Also, by the way, sometimes I just want to say people do put thumbs down because, they're kind of making references to also to the type of weather I'm talking about and not necessarily that they're not liking me. I'm very sensitive. Landfall around 2 a.m. in the morning on the 10th. I think we're talking maybe more closer to 2 p.m. On the 10th, Rose. It'll be right around midday on Wednesday. Tim Litfield, pretty much going to ride it out. Almost positive. My local sheriff said I could come and stay with him if it got too rough. Tim Litfield, where are you with respect to all this? I'm curious because you know what? If you're right on the water and you're east of Panama City, I don't know. I can't make decisions for people. Any chance of the storm making a more northerly track? Mr. McGinnis, I will, let's, thank you for reminding me. You see how quick I forget. Um, let's go back to uh, just take a look at what's happening. I think, okay, there we go. Put Chrome up there. All right, so let's go back to the GFS. I'm gonna have to go with the old run, Ben, because the new run is not out far enough. We only have it out to 18 hours. So this is at 2 a.m. Wednesday, by the way. The GFS has it roughly at 27.5 and 86.7, a 959 pressure, which I think is reasonable considering where it is now at 965. If we aren't seeing rapid deepening, but we keep seeing this sort of slow, steady intensification, certainly 959 or maybe a little bit lower is in the realm of possibility. But you want to look at southeastern Canada, of course, and we can take a look at that. So I'm just going to go back one run, so at least I can go out far enough for you. And okay, there you go. I only wish he had Levi would make a map that was a little bit wider that includes, say, from the mid-Atlantic on up into southeastern Canada, so we could I could see the 500. That would be Levi, if you're listening, we love tropicaltidbits.com so very much. Add that geography; it would be great, so we can get some of the upper air maps instead of having to look at it on the wide map. So here's from the old run, and I'm suspecting that the new run is not going to be too different. But you've got this approaching front, so you're going to get the range from that. But the GFS, by the way, and let me just point out, Ben, that the GFS has been the furthest north of all of these. So it actually brought some of the rain close to the south coast of Nova Scotia and into Newfoundland. But I suspect that the European, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to see it as well because we don't have the same map available. I can't, yeah, so we only see the 850 on this. So I'd have to look at it closer. So I'm not sure exactly. This is only in 24-hour increments. The European actually brings the low close to the northeastern part of Nova Scotia, between Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. But my only issue with the European with this has been that it has been slower, and I just wonder whether that's impacting its final track. I think we'll have to take a look at it on this map, which I really am not a fan of, because I mean I like the map when it's useful to show the whole Atlantic, but this is where being able to see it very tight up with the upper air would be better. But here's the we'll put this one with the lows. You can see it a bit better. So this is uh, Thursday evening into southwestern South Carolina, and then by Friday evening it's sitting east of the Virginia coast. I think that's just a little bit too slow. I think it's going to be further northeast of that at that point. The better agreement with the other models, and then it just kind of goes east northeast from there, south of Newfoundland. So, close to southern edge of Nova Scotia with some rain, but the body of the cyclone is going to probably pass far enough where it's not going to cause huge issues. But perhaps it's close enough that you want to keep a further eye on it going forward. And by the way, the upper air, it's being kicked along. You can see how the shortwave treats this, how it picks it up and carries it away, kicks it out to the east northeast. You see how those westerlies just drop in and then it just gets kicked out to the east northeast. Then you have this, the trough in Canada just really sharpens from Labrador on south of Nova Scotia and then just carries it away to the northeast. At this point, it's been absorbed, or it just basically has become completely extratropical. And that trough brings in, by the way, some very cool autumn air into the eastern part of the U.S. that's going to be with us this weekend. The ridge tries to pop up over the early next week briefly, because the next trough is diving down into the plains and it's going to progress. So there's a big difference here The ridges are going to pop up as troughs lift out. That just happens. But there's already the next trough getting ready to move in, and that is going to bring in perhaps some rain here into the east along about Monday or Tuesday, and another shot of cooler air behind that after it goes by. So it looks, at least as far as the longer range pattern is concerned, that we are seeing things change. That the control that the ridge in the east has had on the overall weather pattern through much of the month of September and early October seems to be giving way. Let's see how much of the 12Z run we have. We have it out to 36 hours. And by the way, you can see Nadine on this view. You can see, which is down in the tropical Atlantic at about 13 and 32. We can also see Leslie at 27 and 43. And it actually drops it almost straight southward, but it's supposed to be getting kicked eastward, so we can at least see where the GFS has it landfall-wise. And this is for tomorrow at 8 p.m. So it actually is a little bit, it's just a shade slower by a few hours. The GFS bringing it ashore sometime between 2 and, let's say, 5, 6 p.m. Models are going to have these issues with, for a couple of hours here and there, but it is going to be making landfall Wednesday afternoon. As I'm thinking, it's probably going to be a Category 3, and that also brings up. If you think back to Sunday when we first looked at this, I mean, I really was hard pressed to see this get much beyond a Category 1 hurricane because of all the, with the upper air shear that was there. That was going to wind up getting in the way, and it turned out to be, I was mistaken and amazed, and I'm still amazed. And this is one of the things I've always loved about weather. You're always, I had Dr. Judah Cohen on last night. He made a great point. If you're in this business, it is a very, very humbling business. Okay, and that. This is an example of it. Sometimes you think you have it all figured out, and it doesn't always work that way. Things come along, and you learn new things all the time. I got to go back, David Schwartz, on what the longest one was. I think, in the back of my head, I'm thinking 30 days, but I got to go back and specifically look at that. Anthony Orr is the resident statistician here, so I'm going to ask him. Norman Goodwin, the Eye of Florence went right over me in Lexington, South Carolina, and no problems though. Norman, yes, but that's different from what went on along the immediate coast, and that's different from what's going to be going on the Florida Panhandle. And the rain outcomes are going to be a bit different for you because of the fact that this thing is going to move along. So I just want to make the point that, and this is a mistake, and the Hurricane Center has acknowledged this, that for folks that are in areas where warnings are up and they try to make the decision with regards to evacuating or not evacuating, and they look at past performance and they say, well, I didn't evacuate for such and such a storm. A number of people have used that decision, and that decision comes back to bite them because there were people, for example, that survived Hurricane Katrina back in Louisiana back in 2005, and when Ike threatened in 2008, they said, well, I survived Katrina and that was horrible, so if I could survive that, I could survive anything. And there were people that have lost their lives making a decision based that way. So I want to just bring that point up. You can't always look at past experience because not every storm comes in the same way. Not every storm has the same intensity or depth or track. And they all will create different outcomes. You're in Grady County in Georgia, and you're under a hurricane warning. Okay. Well, you're not going to get the direct hit. I know you're under a hurricane warning because of hurricane force winds. You're not dealing with storm surge issues there because you're inland. So, at least from the surge standpoint, you've got a different parameter of decisions of factors here to determine your decision, and you're speaking to the people you need to speak to. So you can have confidence with respect to that. Bad weather freak, Cat 4 landfall. Look, I'm not gonna say it's impossible. I'm not gonna deny. I'm not gonna say that it's impossible that it couldn't get that strong. Um, Christine AS, Christine, the Patreon. Oh, thank you, AS. I appreciate the endorsement. Um, is there going to be another tornado outbreak with this upcoming front like the one on Tuesday in Pennsylvania? Asks Anthony P. Okay, I have not looked at the severe weather forecast from the Storm Prediction Center. I certainly think that there could possibly be some strong thunderstorms with that front. We're going to have dew points up into the 70s, but I'm just curious as to what they're doing with respect to Thursday. And okay, at this point, the Storm Prediction Center is not indicating any risk of severe weather up our way. I think the one thing that might be against it this time around is the strength of the trough. Even though the trough is stronger, I just wonder whether there's a bit more of a marine influence this time around and further inland than there was the last time. And I think that might hold it back a bit with respect to severe weather developments. But I do think that there will be some thunderstorms and some heavier downpours. So right now, I would lean against it, but I certainly am going to keep an open mind to the front coming through with a bit more punch, considering what just happened back last week. Okay, I understand, Norman. No worries. Comparing it to this one, it was very weak. Just making a comment that the eye went right over me. Okay, I got you. No. But you did by the way, uh, remind me to bring up a very important point when it comes to making the decisions, and I appreciate that. Thank you. Um, Let's see. Cynthia Guignautis, longest lived hurricane so far. The San Chiriaco hurricane in 1899, 27 and three-quarter days. Ginger in 71, 27 and a quarter days. That actually went straight east off the Carolina coast out to almost 40 degrees west and then turned around and came right back, came all the way back westward into North Carolina, albeit much weaker. Inga in 69, 24 and three-quarter days, and Nadine most recently in 2012, 22.25 days. I have not kept track about how long Leslie's been around, but I wonder, it sounds like it's going to be pushing the upper end of that envelope. Is there a chance that Michael moves to New Orleans? Tuddy's young? No. New Orleans is fine. You're not going to see anything there. It's not going to be able to shift that far to the west. Not with what's going on, not with the upper air collapsing the way it is. We've got a bit more of the GFS at this point, so I think we could go take a look at that. Late comers to the live stream, welcome aboard. Thank you for being on my YouTube channel. Really appreciate it. And please, by all means, participate in the chat. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is absolutely free. All right, so we've got a little bit more of the GFS here. And let's bring it back. So we have it out to 54 hours. So landfall on the GFS a little slower than the NAM. Comes in actually a little bit, just a shade to the west too, because it comes in perhaps a little bit closer to Panama City. So, I want to caution everybody again, when you're looking at these model maps, do not make decisions based on these model maps. You have to use the National Hurricane Center's official forecast and recommendations from your local officials, nhc.noaa.gov and weather.gov. Remember, you can look at one model and see one thing, and you look at another model and see something different where it's 30 miles in either direction, and that's going to have a huge impact on wherever you live. You don't want to make decisions that way. So here we go. Moving inland. And notice the pressure, it takes its time weakening because you've got this upper air energy that's coming in from the west with the jet stream dropping southward and picking it up. And part of the circulation is over the Northeast Gulf. Part of the circulation is off the Atlantic, off the southeast coast. So that's going to and that's going to hold it together a bit more. You are going to see, this maintaining an identity as a tropical storm as it moves northeastward through South Carolina. This is Thursday night. on the South Carolina, North Carolina border. And by Friday, we're up to 2 a.m. on Friday, where it's in northeastern North Carolina. And you can see how the GFS, the front and the storm, the front is moving east and the storm is kind of riding along it until it gets pushed further to the east. The NAM, by comparison, just to show you, the NAM is actually a little faster. It's a bit more to the northeast. It's moving off the Virginia coast for the same time frame. So the GFS a little slower and west and southwest of the NAM position, and we don't have it past 66 hours. The rain and thunderstorms showing up in through Pennsylvania, New Jersey, into southern New England. Again, that is all from the cold front. And with respect to the rainfall that the model generates, and with tropical systems, always remember that you can easily wind up being off by 50 to even 100% in terms of total rainfall. But much of Georgia, except the extreme north and the extreme southeast, in 2 to 5 inch rainfalls. South Carolina, the whole state. North Carolina, the whole state. Southern Virginia, the whole state. But remember, the track on the GFS is a little further northwest. If it's a little further east, like the NAM, you're going to shift that rain area. In fact, I can go out on the NAM also. We can look at the NAM's rainfall with all of this, and you can see the NAM has a bit more variability to it, and you start to see this stripe of heavy rain from interior North Carolina running into southeastern Virginia, but it cuts off. And with respect to the thunderstorms, by the way, which is what's going to be the cold front that's going to be the driver in areas to the north, you've got some 2-inch plus rain amounts being shown by the NAM across parts of central Pennsylvania, the Hudson Valley, with lesser amounts on either side. But it's convective, so that could certainly be off, or perhaps on the next run you might see the rain shield show up a bit differently. The NAM, the GFS is a bit less bullish with the rainfall amounts from the cold front, but there still could be every bit of an inch or two. I think the Weather Prediction Center's forecast is a pretty good one. I really don't have issues with what they showed earlier with respect to their forecast. Coming back to the board here, at least North Carolina just drying out from Florence. At least housewife until heaven. This is not going to stall. That really is front and center. With respect to Michael versus Florence, the stalling factor. This one's going to be moving along. So you're looking at about an 8 to 12 hour window of heavy rain. There is a pretty strong onshore flow in extreme northeast South Carolina at 5-foot seas. Sean Devine, with the storm tracking inland like that, you are going to get a push of water with the south and the southeast wind. So just bear that in mind, that there will be some swells and probably some higher than normal tides and some coastal flooding. Doug Crum, do I favor one model over another at this point? I have found in the last couple of months that all of them have had a tough time for one way or another, and there's been some real forecast challenges when it comes to this. I will say that the hurricane track models have worked very well, and again, this is something that you do not use for decision making. But with respect to the tropical systems this year, I think the hurricane track models have done an exceptional job. And in fact, I can show you the latest one. Remember, as it says in that upper corner, thou shalt not use this map, this type of map for decision making, but focus on the cluster. Okay, and you'll notice that most of them have it on the Carolina coast, some a little faster, a couple a little slower, but a bunch of them have it out there on the northeastern part of North Carolina by Friday morning, and then runs out east-northeast from there. They're all on top of each other with regards to the landfall on the Florida Panhandle, somewhere east of Panama City or near Panama City or just east of Panama City, somewhere in that zone, and then running northeast from there, just inland of the coast. So I think the confidence level is pretty high from that respect. And the fact is that with respect to weather models, uh, I look at there's no time to, there's so many, there's just no time to look at every single one of them. So I look at the GFS, I look at the NAM, and I look at the European, um, and those are the tools that have worked for me and that I really understand. I do sometimes look at the HRRR model, which at times has done well this summer and at times it hasn't. And it's the forecaster's job to figure out that puzzle every single time. It's always a battle every single time in trying to figure out how and which model is doing well and whether it's going to continue to do well. Because sometimes when you've figured it all out, that's the point where the model stops working. Um, PJ highlights, yes, the wind shear now is low and the temperatures aloft are high, implying that the storm will continue to strengthen. Certainly think that that's a reasonable assumption here. No matter what, says William Huber, what northeast shore going to take, wait, I'm sorry. No matter what northeast shore going to take another betting more beach erosion before the winter. I wouldn't be shocked at all, William. Although I have to tell you, I went down to Smith Point Park on Long Island, which I hadn't been to. Um, I haven't been to in many years, and I was really happy to see the condition of the beach was in pretty good shape. Are you forecasting meteorologists overreacting to the wind during this storm? Ben, that's a good question because one of the post forecast criticisms that I had, um, not at me, but this is what I thought was in terms of the media. There was with Florence now. There was an overemphasis on the wind. Everybody got focused so strongly on the category of storm that rain became secondary, and was very apparent early on that yes, the wind was important, but the rain factor was never going to change, regardless of whether Florence had come in as a 4, a 3, a 2, or as a 1. And that was the devastating part of that storm. This is why it's very, very important. Uh, this is really very important to when meteorologists to make their message clear. I think here for the Florida Panhandle, the front and center, it's storm surge and wind. Those are the two most important factors. And all the factors are high, but if you want to, especially because we're dealing with a strong 2 and possibly a Category 3 hurricane. So for the coast, it's storm surge, and then it's the wind, and rain is going to be a problem too. Inland, the rain is the problem, but again, this is different from Florence because it's not stalling out. We've got an 8 to 12 hour window where you're going to get clobbered with heavy rain, and there will be flash flooding. And in the Carolinas, because the water is still up there, that flash flooding could come fast. And you're referring specifically to the Weather Channel guy who was really trying to sell the strength in the kids just walking normally in the background. Yeah, you know what, Ben? Yeah, I agree. I have said repeatedly, uh, first of all, I will not go out if it was me, um, especially if I had young kids. I would not put myself at risk like that. I'd rather lose my job. You're not going to put me outside, and I'm not going to be put myself in a dangerous situation. I'm almost 60 years old. Okay, I still won't do it. I'm not going to. I'm not. I would not put myself at risk. I think everybody kind of gets the idea that when you're trying to stand outside in a 75-mile-an-hour wind, you're going to have a tough time. If you want to stand out there and risk being hit by a piece of, a piece of metal or part of a sign, or a wall of, some sheetrock flying around, go ahead, be my guest. I think it's silly, but one of my aims, one of my goals. Those of you who have been on here long enough with me know my approach. Okay, I take a simple, straightforward approach. This is a non-hype environment. Okay, we talk about weather, we talk about the meteorology, and we figure it out. And we take everything in sort of very methodical steps, one step at a time. This is what we have. This is what we think is going to happen. This is when we think it's going to happen. And this without hyperbole. There's no reason for hyperbole. And my opinion is you're all adults. You all are grown up people. You make decisions every day. Here's the information in a very calm, concise, methodical manner. Take a look at it. Make your decisions. Um, I don't watch. I really don't watch anybody. I go to work, I do my job, and I go home. And I do my website work and I do my live streams, and I am no interest in what other people do because that's the world of TV. Of TV news is so much different from when it was when I started. And I can remember the days when we used to have to fight for an extra 30 seconds in a storm situation, and you just never broke in for programming for anything. And we, clamored for more time and clamored for more time, and finally, news directors finally figured out that weather is a big watched. There's one of the reasons people watch is for weather, and more than anything else. So it became a situation of be careful with what you wish for because you may get it. And now we find ourselves, doing so much and so overworked and having to cover all these different angles with respect to TV and social media and everything else. Uh, it's a lot tougher than what it was. And, that's why I'm liking it here because it's mine. And that's what I enjoy the most about it. Yeah, I mean, the whole news is just totally different from what it was. It's evolved into, in generally, it's just a mess. Um, Christine Miller, wise. You would not go out in a storm. A very wise decision. And by the way, that reminds me also that you know when we see these hurricane warnings that are up, I mean, they are to be taken seriously. If it turns out that where you are, that um, you come away relatively unscathed, some people get mad at that. They get mad at the idea of being inconvenienced. I think that's silly. You didn't get the tragedy you were hoping for. Is that how you're thinking of it in your mind stream and your mindset? You go out. I know it's inconvenient. Believe me, it's a tough decision to have to leave your home, and nobody wants to do it. Your home is your home, and there's an emotional attachment to it. But also remember too, everything is fixable, everything is replaceable, and bear that in mind when you make these sorts of decisions. I don't. I'm not making judgment on what people decide. Everybody's a grown up, and everybody's got to do their own thing. NHC.NOAA.gov for the National Weather Service, for the National Hurricane Center information. That storm inundation tool, very important. Go to weather.gov for your local National Weather Service office for official information. Your local officials, your local government officials in your county, they know what's best, and your county and where you live far better than I do. And use those sources, okay? And 99 Wolves is correct. You can fix houses and stuff, but you can't fix a life. Just to verify that I heard you correctly, you're not expecting much rain and wind north of the Delmarva aside from what the front creates. Cynthia Guignatis, that's correct. At this point, at this stage of the game, from what I'm seeing in terms of weather models, yes, the front will produce some 1, 2, and maybe some isolated 3-inch rain amounts and some heavy downpours, all convective, but it's not going to be Michael related for Pennsylvania and for New Jersey, the Hudson Valley, southern New England, and New York City, Long Island, that particular area. Southern Delaware gets grazed by some of that. The northern edge of it, maybe it gets close to Cape May in southern New Jersey, and that should be it. Daniel Seaman, you're saying it's pretty windy up in Tampa. The winds are strong. The storm has got a pretty decent size circulation on the east side in particular. So you're going to get gusty and stay gusty with this as it moves further north. Um, yeah, William Huber, I'm actually trying to figure out a way to go fishing, but I can't do it today. But maybe toward the weekend. Stephen Franco, Leslie going around in circles in the Atlantic, will it eventually cool the waters down in the Atlantic? Well, one of the things, by the way, with respect to Leslie, because it keeps going around in circles, is that it keeps going around its own water that it's already upwelled. So that's going to have an impact on how strong it is or isn't going forward. Uh, it's been kind of funny to just sort of see it go, moving in all different directions. Uh, it's moved southeast, it's moved east, it's moved west, it's moved northwest, it's moved southwest, it's moved southeast. And I think at some point it probably moves straight south. So this might be one of those um, uh, rare storms that moves in every direction on the compass before it's all said and done. Um, yeah, we'll, I'm going to be curious to see how long this thing winds up lasting. All right, folks, thanks for being here today. Just one more reminder as we wrap this up. I just want to give another plug to my Patreon page, which you can easily find. I'll put the link up uh, for you. For those of you who want to join, it's just $2 a month. And you get website posts that I create for my website, but you get them on Patreon with no ads. You also get additional posts that are not on my website, so they'll be exclusive to you. We've been doing live videos just for Patreon members. I opened it up to everybody today because of the fact that this is a serious storm. So I just wanted to, open it up to everyone on this early live stream. And then we have the evening live stream, which is always, there for everybody on YouTube. So thank you very much for those of you who have subscribe, by the way, to my YouTube channel. I really appreciate it. But you get that, and you also, you get access. You get access to me where you can message me, and if you've got some questions or comments, we had Dr. Judah Cohen on last night on the YouTube live stream. You should take a look at that because he's talking about the upcoming winter. He works on a theory with regards to snow cover growth in Siberia and how he uses that as a forecasting tool for forecasting winters in the eastern part of the United States. It was a very interesting. He stayed with us for 45 minutes. And if snow is your thing, take a look at my video up from last night. It's he was. We're hoping that we're going to have him back, and we will have also guests that will be exclusive to just Patreon members. Once I get a few more members in there, and we'll have some live streams that'll be just for members only. So do consider it. The link to that is going to be on the chat board in 1 second here. So hold on. And there you go. Also, just a reminder too, tonight I will be at the Bayport Blue Point Library in Bayport, New York, and that will be at 7 o'clock tonight. So if you are on Long Island, or you want to make the drive, or you want to fly in, I doubt that part. But I'll be at the Bayport Blue Point Library at 7 o'clock for my library talk tonight, and of course we are going to talk about, you guessed it, Hurricane Michael front and center. And we'll also I will be live streaming that tonight, by the way, starting at 7 o'clock. So if you can't make it, you can watch it on the live stream. And if I can, we'll bring you, I'll try to take your questions. Scott Briller, I'm going to live stream it on YouTube to everybody tonight because of the fact that we do have a potential Category 3 hurricane. So tune in. That'll be at 7 o'clock tonight on YouTube. And the only other thing I want to mention, for those of you who would like another way to support my channel, there is another way, and it's an easy way if you shop on Amazon. I am a participant in the Amazon Services LLC program, which is an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for my channel to earn fees by linking to Amazon.com and its affiliated sites. So if you shop on Amazon and you do your search through this link, You get your stuff through with Amazon's great prices, and Amazon throws me back some coin out of their pocket, not yours, so that you get your stuff. I get myself a couple of cigars out of it, and that is a great way to support my channel. Because if you're going to shop on Amazon anyway, it works. Okay. I do have a store, by the way, with some weather mugs and things. So if you're interested in that, you can go to my store on Shopify. And I haven't been putting the link up on YouTube, but you can find a link to it on my Facebook page, meteorologist Joe Chaffee. Snow upstate New York and New England this weekend, asked John Trabacchino. Um, I'm thinking that there might be some rain showers and maybe some elevation flurries. Not impossible. I'll look a little closer when I can a little bit later, and maybe I'll address it tonight. Leon Probitsky, he brought his weather station yesterday on Amazon. Thank you, Leon. I really appreciate it. Yeah, just if you use the search box, it works. How is Lexington, South Carolina winter going to be this year? Okay, Javon Johnson. Uh, Hold on to the winter questions. Actually, Dr. Cohen promised to come back in a few weeks after he puts out his winter forecast in about 10 days or so. And we can ask him what he thinks about the winter for the eastern part of the United States. I'm not a long range guy, and I've said this many times. I can't get my head around the long range. I'm a short range guy. So the best way to do that is to get the long range guys on my show here, and you can ask them. So when he comes back, or I may have some other people on along the way, hold your question. Okay. All right, folks. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you tonight at 7 o'clock here on YouTube. I'll be live streaming again from the Bayport Blue Point Library, and enjoy your day.